Okay, so I'm going to just hit the button here, and there it is. Ms. Murray will be first. These are going to be on housing, a number of questions, both on rent control and affordable housing. A couple questions that read very similar. Do you favor rent control? What are your thoughts on rent control? Support, oppose? Affordable housing, do you favor expanding, contracting, or keeping the same? I'll phrase it, affordable housing in Hoboken. Ms. Murray.
I am in favor of rent control. I believe that people shouldn't be forced from their homes. I do believe, though, that when residents do decide to leave their homes, we should allow the landlord to charge fair market value for their property. But let's be clear, fair market value doesn't mean price gouging. I am in favor of a consistent and well-publicized policy for rent control, which I don't feel we necessarily have in Hoboken currently. As for affordable housing, I'm also supportive of that as well. We have affordable housing in our second ward with Applied. I don't know exactly where we'd be able to put more affordable housing in the second ward given the current plans that we have in place for all of the high-rises that are planned to go up. But I am supportive of it and do believe that we are a highly populated town. We need to help our middle-income families with affordable housing opportunities in our town. So we need to come up with solutions there for affordable housing. Thank you.
Mr. Cunningham.
I support affordable housing. I support rent control. Rent control is kind of interesting because what we were able to achieve with this council 4 years ago or so, maybe it was just before the last election, had never been seen or accomplished by any council. I mean, we had the political will to make changes to the rent control law that provided some flexibility to the landlords as well as some additional protections to the tenants. That was establishing a statutory 2-year look back for incorrect rents on the landlords, for the landlords, and then a much more burdensome disclosure requirement for tenants. And that had support from both Fair Share Housing as well as the landlord community. And of course, they did go to a referendum for vacancy decontrol, and the public spoke. That did not pass, and I think we should be very happy and pleased with where rent control is today. Affordable housing, I think we've done a lot to ensure that for all new development, we have a 10% set aside for affordable housing. We've evaluated the affordable housing in Hoboken, and I think we should continue to evaluate it because I feel that there are a lot of people that are living in affordable housing that don't belong in affordable housing, and there's certainly a lot of people that need it.
Mr. Biancamano.
I am all in favor of rent control. Growing up, I've seen many of my friends and neighbors having to be pushed out of their neighborhood homes. Margaret O'Brien's in the building. She could tell you many of the people in her building that have been pushed out because of increasing rents. I also believe in the need for more affordable housing. I am in favor of the 10% rule, where any new development should have 10% affordable housing, if not even more. The other side of this are the landlords. They are suffering from this recent property reevaluation where taxes have gone sky high, where they had to push the burden onto their tenants and increase their rent because of the increase in taxes. So we need to try to stabilize taxes on one end, and we need to try to create affordable housing and keep rent control on the other end. Thank you.
Ms. Giattino.
Again, with the reval actually benefited homes that were rent controlled. Typically, their taxes went down; they did not go up. Rent control and affordable housing is what makes our town what it is. It brings diversity to this town. I was able to change the rent control law without weakening the actual law by allowing condo owners to rent out their apartment at market rate, and then that becomes their new base rent if they have lived in the unit for more than 2 years. Unfortunately, Applied Housing is losing many of its Section 8 housing today and has over the past decade or so because Assemblyman Garcia fought for these units to come offline as people moved out and became market rate housing. Thank you.
Mr. Gonzalez.
I think rent control is needed in Hoboken. It's a stabilizing factor for our community. It allows families to stay and grow and raise their family. They'll be guaranteed that their rents the next year or the following year aren't going to go up 40, 50, 60%. It adds to the diversity of our town. It makes sure that our town is not homogeneous in just one demographic. In terms of affordable housing, I was a commissioner on the Housing Authority, where we fought for the residents of affordable housing, of the residents of the Housing Authority. The wait list in the Housing Authority was, I think, around 800 people. So the demand is definitely there for affordable housing. I'm glad we have the 10% set aside, but that's also something that could be revisited. Maybe we can have more in some places. We can also have more senior housing. So we always talk about residential and how residential might be a drain to our infrastructure, but if you actually put up affordable senior housing, it's not necessarily a drain. Seniors don't use the public school system. Seniors usually don't drive. They're usually walking. So we definitely could do more in terms of affordable housing. And again, for rent control, I'm definitely in support of rent control.
And Mr. Garcia.
Unfortunately, my opponent, when she was city council president, had the opportunity to do the right thing and to be a game changer with respect to the Section 8 housing. Whereas currently, under the Section 236 rules, you would have protected Section 8 tenants by using your division of rent control to basically keep an inventory of all those units that would be turned over, where that landlord would be required to find another voucher tenant or low-income resident. Unfortunately, that's not happening. There's no compliancy, there's no monitoring. It still is not in effect, even though Hoboken has had inclusionary zoning, has had all these measures, but that they failed. Number two, when it comes to the rent control, it's a balance, it's education. You know, you got to protect those that are most vulnerable. The reality is that the city council, my opponent as city council president, had the opportunity to again approve $36 million of state funds and federal tax credits, which they rejected it, left it on the table for us to build, you know, anti-Superstorm Sandy housing for those of low, moderate, working class, as well as senior citizens and disabled person. So I've always championed workforce housing. That is what is necessary. You know, artists, entrepreneurs, senior citizen, disabled persons housing, because we understand, first of all, our seniors are living longer. Secondly, you do have a lack here in Hoboken, VA housing, disabled persons housing. You have a lack here in Hoboken in those areas. And I think it's imperative that when you serve on the city council, especially city council president, you should be championing those measures to protect those that are most vulnerable, have a balance, have a mix of the right housing. And that's what we need moving forward. Thank you.
And I understand, Mr. Garcia, do you have to go now, or are you?
Thank you, Mr. Bowder. And as a matter of fact, and I apologize, but as QLC knew that I had another engagement this evening, but I value what they do, and I chose to come, so I have to run to that engagement. I thank you all tremendously for your time, and if anyone has any questions for me afterwards, CarmeloForCouncil.com. You can tweet me at Carmelo Garcia, and I thank you so much for the opportunity. Have a great evening.
All right, moving on. So let's see. I'm going to do another refresh, and there we have it here. In fact, actually, look, I can. Oh yeah, sure. Actually, I was going to delete the Garcia line to make things simpler here. All right. I'll do another refresh then. There it is. All right. So this one, this question is about. The last was about rent control and housing. This is about kind of development, I guess somewhat related, but about development in town. And we have several cards that are similar. I'll read a few of them. What is your position on the appropriate height of the buildings that are proposed over the rail yards by the train station along Observer Highway? Also, do you support the proposed New Jersey Transit redevelopment agreement? A similar question. And this, a little more general, many feel the city is anti-development. The term smart development gets used often. Please give your definition of smart development and whether you're for it or whether you prefer stupid development. Mr. Biancamano, you're first.
Well, I tell you, I guess smart development is the same as sensible development, which I'm for. I do believe in looking at the New Jersey Transit rail plans, meeting with the Fund for a Better Waterfront last week, that the city does need more commercial property in the town, whether that's businesses coming in, spending, and increasing the day life of our town. There are some flaws to that plan, though. I do believe that the traffic study there needs to be more roads. It's just going to cause for greater congestion in that area where literally if a FedEx delivery driver was delivering one package, he has to go around 3 different blocks to deliver it to another package down the streets. I do believe that we need to look at the small business areas of that development and we need to make sure that it's in code with the new flood guidelines. And I do believe that we need more open space in that development. I believe they have like a little bit of a patchy area of grass where it looked like it was the size of the ShopRite Park. So I do believe that there are some flaws in that plan. I do appreciate the city trying to bring in more commercial tenants. Thank you.
Ms. Murray.
I believe we need to sensibly develop in a way that brings prosperity and economic growth to our town of Hoboken. The second ward has already been projected to see an increase in 70% in population by the next census, and our current infrastructure can't keep up, which concerns me. Our roads haven't been paved, we have traffic flow and congestion issues, we lack parking. So when we do develop, we have to sensibly develop and make sure that we're addressing some of those infrastructure issues like parking and traffic flow and congestion. I am not supportive of giant towering buildings, much like the W in town. It's outside of the character of our Hoboken town that we live in. I do believe with development, we do need to develop more open spaces with things like, for instance, the tennis courts at the Monarch site that they were promised, or perhaps a town pool. I've heard many residents on the campaign trail ask for a town pool. Many of these residents have to go to Union City to go use the town pool there, and we all pay very high taxes here. I'd love to see a multi-purpose field put in, like a track and a Little League field, football field combined. We definitely need that open space as we're as populated as we are. I'm advocate for, as it relates to residential development, I believe we need affordable 3-bedroom housing, because I know that many of our families in Hoboken decide to leave because we don't have a lot of 3-bedroom properties. Thank you.
Ms. Giattino.
It's a redevelopment plan that we've adopted for New Jersey Transit. It is not the agreement. So to talk about open space or the height of a building or any of that, that will all be worked out, the nitty-gritty of it, once we have an agreement, which we do not have yet. I think talking about smart development, you can't really say one thing that you believe in, because it's completely different in different areas of town. What may be appropriate in the western edge may be very different than what's appropriate than in the northern end or at New Jersey Transit. So I think you have to really look at each of them individually, and to say one thing for all of Hoboken is right, I think is completely wrong. Thank you.
Mr. Cunningham, are you for smart development or stupid development?
I am for smart development, Bob. And as my council colleague said, smart development or thoughtful development, it's really, it means many things to many people. And it does matter exactly what part of town that we're talking about. And of course, we're talking about the New Jersey Transit rail yards. I was on the committee very early on working with the planner. I wasn't, as we concluded and actually passed the plan, but I was generally comfortable with the plan. My biggest concern, and this is around smart development for this location, is the traffic and transportation flow. Right now, it's a problem. And then we're going to put that kind of density right next to the rail yards, and there's just no doubt that we're not going to be able to get in and out of Hoboken. So I do commend Fund for a Better Waterfront. I think we all have had a conversation with them where we can actually connect the streets to the back of the buildings to improve traffic flow. In fact, I'd like to take it one step further, that we extend Washington Street underneath the rail so it connects with Washington Street in Jersey City. That gives us another access point of getting out of town on the eastern side of Hoboken. Why do we always have to go back to the west end? So again, emphasizing transportation, traffic flow. Let's get the infrastructure in place first before we start giving the developers all kinds of height and density.
And Mr. Gonzalez.
Sure. The Jersey Transit rail yards, I know Fund for a Better Waterfront had an alternate plan that was pretty interesting. One of the aspects of it, if I'm not mistaken, was the Performing Arts Center. So if we actually wanted to create more open space, instead of having them build a Performing Arts Center, we might be able to take that contribution and maybe look at the Union Dry Dock, which I think is around 6 acres of, or what could be 6 acres of open space. In terms of smart development, to me, smart development means being able to address a host of issues, such as affordable housing, flood resiliency, green roofs. parking, and then obviously ratables for the town. So for me, smart development is making sure that Hoboken gets the most bang for their buck. Thank you.
All right. Moving. Did I skip you? I'm sorry. Oh, you want?
Can I have an extra 30 seconds?
Do we have rebuttals allowed? Okay, we're getting a yes from the judges here, so I guess we'll open it up for anyone who wants a 30-second rebuttal. Ms. Giattino.
Sorry, everything was moving really quickly. I hope I didn't ruin that.
All right.
I just want to talk again about New Jersey Transit. It is not the agreement that has been made, it's just the plan. So if there's a possibility that somehow we could get Union Dry Dock out of that, I don't think anyone would not be open to that. I think Union Dry Dock's something that, I know it's something that I would love to see to complete the waterfront. And also talking about performing art space, it was never, it was said in the beginning performing art space, but now it was just called community space. Thank you.
Anyone else with a rebuttal on this? All right, seeing none. Moving on here. Refresh, Mr. Cunningham will be first. And this is basically about just the budget overall. So a couple cards. What are your plans to help reduce budget costs? Someone else says everyone keeps admitting our taxes are high. Great, now what? City taxes have been flat for years. It's the county portion that keeps rising. How do you think we can stop county increases and lower the city portion? And generally, I'm just curious if anyone wants to weigh in on, is the budget, it's a Goldilocks question. Is it too high? Is it too low? Is it just right? If it's too high, what should it be? If it's too low, what should it be? If it's just right, that's okay too. Mr. Cunningham on the budget.
Thank you, Bob. I guess right now the budget is fairly satisfactory. Taxes are always too high. We could always try and make them lower. But right now, I feel that we have a match of city services to the budget. We all have to remember that 7 years ago, it was just 7 years ago, the budget was overspent by $12.5 million. And this city had to restructure, rebuild its budget from scratch. We went from being nearly junk bond status to a AA plus by S&P, which is an extraordinary feat. But there's still more work to be done. There's certainly more work to be done in creating efficiencies in government. And I know we see little things here and there that annoy us, and we need to take care of those issues, because it always makes it seem like we're wasting the hard-earned taxpayer dollars, when really it's just trimming around the edges. What's really going to get us down from a tax perspective is diversifying ourselves away from the expensive residential rateable base. We need more commercial, more retail in Hoboken, because they don't put the kind of demands, kind of pressures on the budget like residential. Notwithstanding, the diversity of residential that we talked earlier, that we want to keep for Hoboken and our growing community, but we have to have more commercial, and that's where it's going to happen in the northwest part of Hoboken.
Ms. Giattino on the budget.
I completely agree that we need to have more commercial to take the tax burden off the residents and diversify the tax burden a little bit. Government needs to be run, obviously, as efficiently as possible without jeopardizing our quality of lives. I am a realist, though. Holding the line on taxes is my goal. Cutting taxes is something I've never seen in my lifetime. I don't know if anyone else has, but holding the line on taxes is really what I'm reaching for. And I do know, and everyone here knows, unfortunately, it is the county that's killing us. Year after year, our county taxes go up. They're growing to be more than our municipal taxes, which is unbelievable that you could live in a county where you're giving them more money than you're keeping for yourself. We need to keep the city's finance strong and stable. I think Councilman Cunningham talked about our bond rating going from practically junk to AA plus. We need to make sure we have a surplus for a rainy day, literally. I think that our budget is really in good shape right now. Thank you.
Mr. Biancamano on the budget.
Thank you. One of my biggest accomplishments on the school board was looking at non-educational spending when it came to the budget. When I came in 5 years ago, we were spending 130% over the state average in legal fees. I'm proud to say, with the work of many of my colleagues on the board that were usually not politically aligned, that we're getting closer and closer to that state average. And I do believe that the money we saved was put right into the classrooms for enhancements for our students. And I look at the city budget, and I notice that almost 12% of the budget is spent on lawyers. And I believe that that could be looked at. I believe that any type of non-essential services needs to be cut, whether that's outside consultants or legal fees. And I think that we need to do that, and we need to reduce the budget to the point where we're going to give some tax relief to our residents. Thank you.
Ms. Murray on the budget.
We should be taxing people fairly. Hudson County has to clear up what it expects from Hoboken residents for our taxes or return us more benefits. And right now, I think we just haven't been seeing the benefits. I can't emphasize enough. I mean, if the benefits that you're seeing are there, and you're seeing your roads paved, and you're seeing your parks well maintained, you're seeing your roads plowed in the winter, you're basically seeing that your quality of life is improving with your tax dollars. But right now, I don't feel like we've seen that. And if we do start to see that, I think we'll find that people won't be as frustrated with how our taxes are being spent. Thank you.
Mr. Gonzalez.
So the budget. When we look at the budget over 8 years ago to now, the tax levy has gone up every year. 8 years ago, the budget was around 92 million. Now we're at 108 million. When I talk to residents in the 5th Ward, everyone tells me that they don't feel like they're getting what they're paying for. You can't go around and tell people, I can't go to you and say, I'm going to sell you a dozen eggs for $4, and then the next day sell you a half dozen for the same $4 and tell you I kept your taxes flat. That, in essence, is what the city is doing. They're cutting services, and they're booting like crazy, which is why the parking authority generates a $4 million surplus. And then when looking at the bond rating, I totally agree. It's great that our bond rating went up, but then you can't turn around and start spending on that credit card and bond for $141 million. Everyone in this room owes roughly $3,000 due to all the bonding that the city has done. I've actually sat on 2 boards where we did not have the ability to tax our way out of problems. We weren't able to raise rents on residents, and in the charter school, we can't tax our way. So what we did is we came up with creative solutions, and we did it, and we didn't sacrifice services to residents or to the students of the school. So as your councilman, I will make sure we have true efficiencies in the city's budget.
Okay.
Bob, I'd like to rebut, please.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, good, thank you. I don't know what services Mr. Gonzalez is talking about that we're cutting, though I think he might be referring to the 1 day of garbage that we did cut from the budget that, quite frankly, was an efficiency that didn't bring a whole lot of savings to the budget. I think it was a couple $100,000. So I really think the city workers do a wonderful job, and we should support them in their efforts in trying to keep this city running.
Go ahead, Mr. Gonzalez.
Just take a look at Washington Street. This past Sunday when we had the the Fall Arts Music Festival, so you don't have to even drive, just walking down the street. I saw a couple of people tripping and falling. The roads haven't been repaved, and if you want to talk about garbage, by cutting it 1 day, we don't have less people in town. If anything, we're getting more people, and everyone's probably producing the same amount of garbage. So that in and of itself is a decrease in services.
Anyone else? Okay. Moving on, doing my randomizer here. We'll begin with Ms. Giattino next. And I wanted to ask, we've got a couple questions about something I confess I didn't know that much about, which is until tonight, which is this Union Dry Dock issue. Could provide a 3-acre addition of land for Hoboken's waterfront park and a key link from Castle Point Park to Maxwell Place Park. It's right along the waterfront. The dry dock has been for sale for quite a while, zoned for only 2-story buildings. The land should be more affordable compared to property elsewhere in Hoboken. Shouldn't the city have a strategy for acquiring the Union Dry Dock? This question, do you support the acquisition of the Union Dry Dock so Hoboken can have a continuous waterfront? If so, how would you bring this to fruition? Ms. Giattino.
I think it was my first year on the council, and there was some changes to what open space the city would be looking to acquire, or some additions, and I suggested adding Union Dry Dock into that. It was not, but it was the piece of property that I thought should be added in there. So yes, I do support acquiring Union Dry Dock. It would complete the entire waterfront. I think the waterfront is one of Hoboken's most it's a great asset to the city. When you walk along the waterfront, Pier C, Pier A, it's just really spectacular, really beautiful. So yes, I do think we should add Union Dry Dock if possible. How we get that, I know that Fund for a Better Waterfront does have some ideas about somehow working that into the redevelopment agreement, and it would definitely be something I would visit. Thank you.
Ms. Murray.
I also heard that the Fund for a Better Waterfront had some ideas on the Union Dry Dock, and I am absolutely supportive of that. I am very much for open spaces in our second ward, especially because we've had so many buildings go up, and there's really no more space to put any more buildings. I'm absolutely supportive of that Union Dry Dock being acquired by our city and using that as open space. In fact, again, I'd love to see a town pool here in Hoboken for our residents, and you know, if there's opportunities to put one there, I would welcome that. Thank you.
Mr. Cunningham.
Certainly, I support the acquisition of Union Dry Dock, but I believe my opponent would probably like to do a developer deal and trying to get a couple of those acres for free. Just to go back to BASF for a moment, there's no increase in taxes to acquire BASF. For those that are knowledgeable, there's an open space trust account that we've been funding for years. Mayor Zimmer and I, we established that trust account with a tenuous majority of the council to get that done, and that is what is the cornerstone for us acquiring open space in the future. And that's how we're going to do it with BASF, and if things do not work out in a redevelopment plan, we can only do these things in a redevelopment plan, then perhaps we can do it with New Jersey Transit or some other large plan to help with the acquisition of Union Dry Dock. Otherwise, we've got a great fallback. That's the open space trust account and the great financing that our AA plus bond rating can give us in raising funds at a very attractive rate.
Mr. Biancamano.
I am 100% in favor of trying to acquire the Union Dry Dock. As some of the other candidates have said, or council people have said up here, our waterfront is our town's gem, and it is certainly one of the missing pieces there. I believe they wanted to create a waterfront walkway from Jersey City to Weehawken, and any way possible we can come to fruition with that plan is the way we should go. I do think we need to negotiate with the property owners this way we're not breaking the bank to buy that piece of land, but I do think we certainly need it for more open space. Thank you.
Mr. Gonzalez.
So with the Union Dry Dock, I definitely think to have a complete waterfront, it should be a goal for Hoboken. I don't understand why my opponent doesn't want to obtain stuff at no cost and rather, again, burden the taxpayers. If you can work with Jersey Transit and say, again, instead of the Performing Arts Center, the Community Center, whatever you want to call it, instead of putting something like that there, why don't we then try and negotiate and try and get the Union Dry Dock at no cost to the Hoboken taxpayers? I don't understand what's wrong with not paying anything.
Any rebuttal moment here?
As I said before, nothing comes for free. The problem that we have with this kind of transaction is that we're going to end up with too much density, and that's just going to impact the traffic and transportation flow issues that we're already trying to deal with.
It doesn't come for free. His point of view is to further tax the Hoboken taxpayers an extra $45 million. And again, and that's just the beginning. We don't know what the end number is going to be because it's not a transparent and open process. So us Hoboken taxpayers already were on the hook for $3,000. Everyone here, it could be a lot higher because we don't know what the number is.
All right, moving on. Hitting my refresh. Ms. Murray will be first. Actually, we're going to take a moderator privilege question. What is your favorite restaurant in Hoboken, Ms. Murray?
That's so tough because I think so many of our restaurants are wonderful. But I would have to say that I am completely enjoying having La Isla uptown. La Isla, for me, you know, going downtown wasn't as convenient, but now we have a really great space up at 12th and Maxwell Lane. And if you haven't been there, you really should get there. But really great atmosphere and amazing food, you know, just like the downtown La Isla,
Do they have
but
a
even
liquor
better.
license on the Uptown one?
Yes,
They do.
they
See
do.
it? You there?
They
There you go.
absolutely do.
Ms. Giattino, on your favorite restaurant in town?
I think, no, it's different than last time. With family, it's definitely Benny's. I eat there every Friday night. And with friends, Autostrada.
Sorry, where?
Autostrada.
Okay.
You should go there after. I know
haven't.
you're always looking for somewhere to eat.
Okay. I don't know that place.
It's on Park and 8th.
Okay. Mr. Cunningham, you ever eaten in town?
Have I?
Yeah, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have. In fact, I have lots of favorites. We've got Anthony David's, we've got 10th and Willow, Johnny Pep's, The Beer Garden, Carpe Diem. I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody. But I would have to agree with Bonnie. I think the diversity of having La Isla uptown, though it's out of the 5th Ward, is a great addition to the uptown neighborhoods. And we do try and get out from time to time on the weekends because, there's too much running around during the week. So that's all I have to say. Thanks.
I'm big on La Isla downtown. I have the huevos rancheros that I die for. In fact, they don't even give me the menu. They just know that I want the huevos rancheros whenever I walk into La Isla downtown. So just wanted to throw that out there. No one actually asked my opinion, but Mr. Gonzalez.
Sure. So again, as everyone else said, the diversity of our town in terms of places to eat is very unique. For me, actually, one of my favorite places in town is the Turtle Club that's in the 5th Ward because on Tuesday nights they have $1 oysters, $1 clams, and $1 shrimp. So that's why it's my favorite place.
Dollar shrimp?
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty good. Mr. Biancamano.
M&P Biancamano Italian Deli. Thank you.
I knew. As soon as I didn't even think about that, so I looked over and I was like, oh, okay, I know where this is going.
Voted best mozzarella 3 years in a row, Bob.
All right, let's do a refresh here. We're nearing the home stretch, folks. Ms. Giattino will be first on this question on, more about Washington Street. I've heard lots of talk about Washington Street, but what about the entire plan of redevelopment? Paving will only make Washington Street look pretty, but we need upgraded traffic lights. And what is your opinion of the bike lane proposal? Backing in parking, et cetera. Another question, what would be your plan to renovate and improve Washington Street? I happen to think that some of those benches should be turned around that are facing the street. I would like to turn some of them around towards the sidewalk.
We've
on
done
Washington.
that, Bob.
You should visit the 6th Ward. I had
That's
several
happened
done.
already, Bob.
Well, not all of them. That's where I hang out. So, Ms. Giattino, Washington Street, so there are issues of bike lanes, there are issues of all these things. Go ahead.
I know a lot of people have concerns about the bike lanes, and it really is, when I speak to people, I think it's a 50-50. People want them, people they don't. And something we've talked about in the Parking and Transportation Subcommittee is possibly doing like a soft version of it, a pilot version of it, so if it doesn't work, it's something that can be changed. I do know a lot of people uptown seem to be the ones that are really fighting to have the bike lanes there. I think they believe it'll be easier for them to get downtown. Washington Street, there was no point in repaving without fixing the water lines underneath, and the gas lines were all being changed as well. There was no point in repaving before you do that. Why repave and then have a water main break 2 days later? Not to say it wouldn't happen, but it would definitely happen if we didn't do that first. The lights, we don't have walk, don't walk signs. It's so dangerous. You don't realize the light's about to change and you're halfway through the block and the light's changing. We need walk, don't walk signs, so I'm 100% behind that. Thank you.
Mr. Gonzalez on Washington Street.
Sure. Washington Street is the crown jewel of our community. It's the heart of our business district. And it's something that should have been, as I said before, should have been repaved over 8 years ago. I've spoken to several of my neighbors, residents of the 5th Ward, and some are for the plan, some are against it. Some of the issues that they bring up are public safety. So something like that, or emergency personnel. So if there's an emergency where they're being called, and every day they're being called to Washington Street, by narrowing the width of Washington Street, you're going to create a bottleneck. It's going to make it extremely difficult for them to navigate and other cars to navigate. The other one is more near and dear for myself. I take the 126 into New York City every day. And when you're getting under the plan, when you're coming off the bus, you're gonna nearly be stepping right into the bike lanes. So now you might get hit by someone that's on their bike coming at 15, 20 miles an hour. Obviously, that's not promoting bicycle safety and it's not promoting pedestrian safety. So as councilman, though, those would be two issues that I would revisit, and we want to make sure we don't have any other unintended consequences.
Ms. Murray on Washington Street.
So I think there are really good things in the plan, and then I have some concerns about the plan. I am pro getting those water mains updated because we've got to get this street repaved. I actually walked in the Little League parade this year with my son, and I saw one of the dads that was with me nearly broke his ankle walking into a pothole. So we absolutely need to get that repaved, so I'm happy about that. I also think that I agree with, Councilman Giattino, that the don't walk and the walk signs are absolutely critical. I walk across that street every day crossing my kids to go to school, and sometimes I don't know if when it's red or when it's green, it's very difficult. And so for the safety of our pedestrians, that's much needed. I am concerned about the bike lanes. My concerns there are you've got when you look at the plan, you've got the bus stop, you've got bike lanes. I'm not so sure if it's safe to be riding a bike with the bus right there. I'm also concerned about if we needed an emergency vehicle to get into one of the small businesses or residences, what the bike lane is going to do, how we're going to get a fire truck in there and an ambulance. So those are some of the concerns that I have with it, but all in all, I'm all in favor of redeveloping it and for the right reasons. Thanks.
Mr. Biancamano.
Thank you. I agree with Mr. Gonzalez regarding Washington Street should have been repaved before redesigned. I've said this over and over again, where visitors are coming into town almost scared of our roads for their cars. And I do believe that the redesign does have some good things, such as updating traffic signals like both Bonnie and Councilman Giattino said. I do not agree with the reverse angle parking on Washington Street, uptown Washington Street. I think that's going to cause exhaust fumes when people are having their pizza, their sandwiches, their sushi outside, and I think that it's going to cause a huge health risk to those people. And I also had a concern about the bike lanes that Ms. Murray touched up on, where the bus stop is going to literally discharge people at the bike lane, and it's going to cause for hopefully not many accidents, but it could cause for many accidents. Thank you.
Mr. Cunningham.
Yeah, I feel like we've been working on Washington Street for a long time. Certainly, it is an economic engine for our small businesses, and we could have taken some very positive steps years ago where we had grant money to fund engineering and planning studies for Washington Street that would have, at the very least, put us on the right path to put the crosswalk countdown signs in. But because of the council and the adversarial council members of the council, we couldn't get it done. They voted no. So here we are today because it's politically expedient to have these discussions, and we all want to work together to get Washington Street done. And now we have a plan that I do agree puts far too much on Washington Street. I'm not against the bike lanes, but I am thinking that maybe we do a, rather than a hardscape bike lane, we do, a painted bike lane. We make it safe, and then we see whether or not this is something that we can live with. And then if it doesn't work, we don't have like the cost and expense of having to pull up, the hard curbs. So I think there's more work to be done there. I think, as we heard this evening, public safety needs to weigh in as to whether or not we are going to have an unintended consequence. And I do think that we're going to get there, but infrastructure first. We got to take care of the infrastructure.
Rebuttal? Go ahead, Mr. Gonzalez.
It's actually not against what Mr. Cunningham said. It's more in terms of backed-in angle parking. I actually, it's probably not very favorable, but I actually am in support of back-in angle parking. Having 3 kids, right now, when you open the door, you're coming back out into the street, then you close the door, and then you go onto the sidewalk. With backed-in angle parking, when you open the door, the kids will go right into the sidewalk, and if you have to access your trunk, The trunk will be right there on the street on the sidewalk, as compared to the other way, which right now when you open your trunk, you're taking out everything right onto the street.
Okay. Let's see, doing a refresh. And so to Mr. Biancamano first, if you're elected, if any of you are elected or re-elected to the city council, what's the one major thing that if you could do one thing in this term and see it through, what's that biggest objective in your mind, the thing you'd most be proud of achieving if you were to win? Go ahead.
I think it's communicating with the public, Bob. I think there's been a lack of communication in the second ward. As I've mentioned before, we pay some of the highest taxes and don't receive a lot of the benefits from the city. There was, I believe, a lack of communication with the PSE&G work, where I'm all for upgrading our infrastructure, but residents' homes were damaged because people did not know they were putting these huge gas pipes in their homes. There was a lack of communication again at the Monarch. If the city certainly went forward with that public planning board meeting, we wouldn't be in this mess right now where litigation's costing us so much money. There was lack of communication over at the Maxwell Place wet weather pump, where, again, we need to find solutions to flooding. We just don't need to affect people's quality of life by doing so. And I think that the way I'm going to communicate to the public is I'm always around. I'm out and about in the neighborhood. I'm going to create social media platforms where I'm going to communicate these types of things to the public. This way they're not surprised when they're walking in their homes and there's this huge gas pipe in their homes. I'm going to send out newsletters. And as I know Margaret O'Brien, I keep picking on you tonight, Margaret is here tonight. She's one of the best communicators in our ward, and I'm going to learn from Margaret. Thank you.
Ms. Murray, if there's one thing you could do, you'll want to do a lot of things, I'm sure, but that one number one priority, what would it be?
I do think, I agree with my opponent on that communication was lacking in the second ward for a very long time. We saw it with the Maxwell water pump issue. We really need a strong advocate in the second ward. I plan to have open public forum meetings. I don't believe that you should have to go to the city council meeting to engage with your city council person. I have an open door policy. I plan to have the open public forum meetings, as well as using various digital tools, social, to keep people informed of what's happening at the city council meetings. But we definitely need a strong advocate on the city council within the second ward, amplifying our residents' voices. Thank you.
Mr. Cunningham.
Thanks, Bob. When I joined the city council, and I was fortunate enough to be elected to the city council, I had an agenda of things that I wanted to accomplish in 4 to 8 years. We haven't accomplished everything, and that's why I'm rerunning for my seat. We took care of the finances. We're addressing the flooding. We've got the infrastructure in place to take care of the flooding. We're acquiring parks. So the big, I would say, last piece of the agenda, and there are a lot of other things, smaller things too, but development is really critical. It's in the northwest part of town. It's really going to define Hoboken and what it looks like in the future. And I think that I have the experience and the stewardship to make sure that what we do is going to be beneficial to everybody in Hoboken, young and old, those that may be socioeconomically challenged. And I want to make sure that those plans and those agreements are in place and can't be tampered with, so that we've protected Hoboken for generations to come.
Ms. Giattino.
BASF. BASF's a game changer for Hoboken. I want to see BASF completed.
And Mr. Gonzalez.
Sure. For me, it would be a common sense approach to government, and it's getting the job done. Certain things shouldn't take 8 years to get done, or 8.5 years. That's pretty long even by government standards. The Empire State Building was built in less time. And certain issues, just the way they were handled, be it the BASF site or the reval. A lot of residents in the 5th Ward were hurt by the reval. The reval could have been handled completely different. We could have phased it in over a couple years. We could have done other towns in the country. What they've done is, if you've lived in your home for 15 or 20 years, maybe you're not subject to the full reval because you've given back so much to the community. Again, it's just common sense approach to government, and a government that works for you.
Bob, I'd like to rebut. Thank you very much. I couldn't agree with Mr. Gonzalez more. Common sense, good government, but it's also the company that you keep, Mr. Gonzalez. All right, you're running with a slate that loves politics, loves to play politics, and quite frankly, that's what's hurt this city. I don't think we need that. We need a common sense approach, and I think I've demonstrated that that's how I've conducted myself as a councilman over the last 8 years.
I'm the one that's on the ballot against you, Mr. Cunningham, not anybody else. When the voters go and vote, they're gonna decide between myself or you. And when you speak about the company I keep, I speak to everyone in town. So you're speaking also about the parents at the charter school and the company I keep there as well. So make sure you keep that in mind next time you try to attack me or attack my character.
All right, so we no applause. Excuse me. No applause allowed until the final statements. That's by tradition here. But we are now at the stage of final statements. So at this point, going forward, applause will be allowed. We are going to have 60 seconds for the closing statements. Am I right? Is it 60 seconds? It looks at confused faces here when I ask that question. So let's make that 60 seconds closing statements, and we begin with Mr. Biancamano.
Thank you, Bob. And I again want to thank the Quality of Life Coalition, Mary Kelly, for running this very, very important forum for our residents. Bob, thank you for moderating again. We spoke about many issues tonight at this forum. Many promises were made, and we need to ensure that the promises we made tonight are not promises to be broken, but are promises to be kept. And you have my word on any promise that I made that it will be kept. I asked my neighbors in the 2nd Ward to focus on a number of things before casting their votes. Who has been here servicing the community all his life? Whose family runs a small business with skin in the game, not in the 2nd Ward, but close enough? Who is the candidate who plans to stay here in the future? And who is the person who is out and about every day talking to the residents of our community? I believe that I am that choice. And on November 3rd, please vote 1D. D, as in dedicated to bringing the community together. Thank you so much.
Ms. Murray.
So thank you again to the Quality of Life Coalition for the opportunity to discuss the key issues tonight, and thanks to all of the residents for attending and taking interest. I can't emphasize enough the importance of getting out to vote on November 3rd. The 2nd Ward has lacked a strong advocate for a very long time. I promise you I will be a strong advocate for our 2nd Ward, fostering open communication with the residents, prioritizing the key issues, and planning for our future as well. I want to make sure that you see visible progress with your tax dollars, because I don't think that we've seen that to date. As an independent candidate, and I'm not tied to any platform, I think I bring an open mind and a fresh perspective and will not shut ideas down simply because they came from the other side. As a resident, a wife, a mother, and a career woman who is just like you, I am tired of all of the fractured politics we've seen in Hoboken. We must end them now. I welcome the opportunity to meet with some of you as I continue to campaign. Please push button 1C on November 3rd. Thanks.
Ms. Giattino.
Thank you to the Quality of Life Coalition for hosting this debate. Once again, I want to thank the residents of the 6th Ward for giving me the opportunity to represent them. I'm proud to represent our neighborhood and pledge to continue to be responsive, helping with individual problems and concerns, serving as our neighborhood's advocate with City Hall, whether it's getting a street light fixed or helping with displacement or some other matter. I will continue to roll up my sleeves and do everything in my power to find a solution. There's several redevelopment plans before the city right now, and I will provide the needed oversight, ensuring that they are thoroughly thought through and that the implications are seriously weighed. I have held the line on municipal taxes and promoted fiscal responsibility and will continue to do so. Hoboken's bond rating has gone from almost junk to AA+. I believe in high standards in the government and making that it is open and honest. We simply can't afford to return to Hoboken's expensive and too often corrupt past. I look for your support on November 3rd. Thank you.
Mr. Cunningham.
Thank you, Bob. First, I'd like to thank the QLC and especially the strong, broad-based support I have from the Fifth Ward constituents. And I will say that I think Mr. Gonzalez has done a phenomenal job with the Elysian Charter School. However, he also has a track record with the Housing Authority, so I'm not sure, which Gonzalez we're going to get. My knowledge of public finance, however, and budgeting to successfully push sound fiscal policies has moved our bond rating from just about junk bond status to AA+. We now have an adequate rainy day fund and are on a sound long-term fiscal path. But we need to continue to promote fiscal responsibility, and I believe that it is a critical task that I'm well equipped to play and have proven so. My opponent has already demonstrated a propensity to overspend budgets. As finance chair of the Hoboken Housing Authority, Mr. Gonzalez oversaw a budget that went from a surplus to a deficit. We simply cannot go back to the days of fiscal mismanagement. Please support keeping Hoboken on a sound fiscal path and vote for me on November 3rd. Thank you.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Thank you. Thank you to the QLC for hosting this forum, and thank you to the Elks also for allowing us to host a forum here. You heard from my opponent, and you heard from we discussed various viewpoints. We discussed our various viewpoints on a host of issues and topics that are key to Hoboken's future. What I would like for you to do, the voters of the Fifth Ward, is to watch this video again and to make an honest assessment. Don't vote for someone because they're your neighbor, they're your friend, or because you have in the past or your kids are on the same soccer team. We are both applying for the same job, and you, the voter, are the employer. On Tuesday, November 3rd, make your decision based on actions. If you want a common sense approach to government, someone with the financial acumen that analyzes income statements and balance sheets on a daily basis, someone that is willing to listen and work together, someone that will increase your quality of life and not decrease it by increasing taxes through backdoor. Then on Tuesday, November 3rd, vote 1D for new leadership, new direction. Vote for Eduardo Gonzalez. Thank you.
Quick program note for everyone. The Board of Election debate will be this coming Monday if Hoboken has not been deluged by Hurricane Joaquin. I guess we'll figure out what to do if that does happen. But Monday, October 5th, Board of Election Forum, and that's going to be at Our Lady of Grace, Board of Education Forum. This crowd is so comfortable with me. They just yell out corrections. I do like that, actually. It's needed. Board of Education Forum on October 5th, and then the Downtown Candidates Forum on October 15th. Please give a warm welcome to Mary Kelly with QLC.
Thank you, Bob, for keeping us so well informed, and for the little shout out about our upcoming forum. To the candidates, I think this was a fabulous, fabulous evening for information being relayed to your citizens here. You've done a great job, and I think that everyone would agree that now you have a better appreciation for the fine distinctions between the platforms of the candidates. So I think this has been a really successful evening in that regard. Members of the public, thank you so much for coming out and supporting us. To our video and audio guys, appreciate your help. QLC colleagues and our volunteers. And moreover, particularly to Bob, for moving us through this smoothly, getting all these questions presented in such a way that it really drew out a lot of insightful commentary by the candidates. So thank you, Bob, once again. As always, we thank the Elks for this fabulous venue. And now we need just a tiny little bit of self-promotion before we go. We're very proud of our forums, but we do a lot of other great work in the community. We sponsor the Uptown and Downtown markets, and we're very involved with a lot of activities. If you haven't had a chance to look at the brochure that we have up front, please grab one as you leave, and feel free to take the opportunity to really get a better idea for who the Quality of Life Coalition is. We are always looking for help. We could use volunteers. And we are a 501c3 tax-exempt, nonpartisan, not-for-profit organization. We'd be more than happy to take or we would welcome a tax-exempt, a tax-deductible contribution. But thank you all very much.
I would like to say one last thing. All of you here have neighbors and friends who were not here tonight, and so this will be posted. The website is qlchoboken.org, and I presume the video will be posted there, right?
The video will be available. We're providing a video to the city that will be shown on Channel 78.
And I presume the website as well.
We are going to shoot for the website as well, and the website address is in our brochure.
Okay, so please tell your friends to watch the debate if they weren't here, especially if they live in the 2nd, 5th, and 6th wards, qlchoboken.org. Thank you very much and good night.
Good night. Thank you.